this also gets into, do universities just want people to stick around because they'll spend more money? So it's more about pushing them through the curricula. And if they don't make it in the real world, oh, well, we have their money. I sort of saw this at culinary school, too, as I mentioned in a previous discussion, where you could conceivably keep failing classes. You could just keep retaking them. But at some point, you would say it's not worth the money. Like, you could conceivably take every class twice, but you'd be spending double your tuition money. And it's like, would it really be worth it at the end of the day to do that? If that, to take an extreme example. And how about foreign languages? It's harder to measure because language courses generally don't lead to fluency. Among American adults, fewer than 2.5% claim they can speak a language very well or well as a result of instruction at school. And again, like the study on how courageous would you be, this is a self-reported number. So in reality, it's probably lower. A certain, 2.5% says I speak very well. But again, break that down further. How many do in reality is probably less than that. And students also vary, as you sort of touched on, and how much would they get out of these courses. So, for example, someone looking to become a diplomat, yeah, they're going to be inclined to learn languages. Someone who just wants to do economics and that's it, they're going to have less incentive to study French or Spanish. Same thing in other fields. And students may find the second language valuable in general, but again, it's kind of subjective, hard to measure. Like the statistic we keep citing of, oh, college is valuable, how well I met my wife. It's like people may say, oh, it was fun, I met some good people, but did it lead to practical real world use? Maybe, maybe not. Like I remember in high school, I wanted to learn Italian. My school doesn't offer it, but it's one of those things that even if I had learned it, how much would I use it today? I mean, I've been working in an Italian restaurant, so it may help with food words and things like that, but is it going to pave the way for a new career? Probably not, unless I went to work in Italy, but even there, that's debatable because a lot of Italians speak English anyway. So yeah, some of this stuff just gets what's that?
Only in Rome.
Only in Rome, okay.
Rome, I mean, from my experience, in Rome, I didn't really have to learn Italian, but once I went to school in Turin, there's a lot fewer people. It just drops. It completely crashes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Any points to add before we move on?
Yeah, with just going back into the whole selection and how ready people are to do some of these things. It's a question for, I know you went to culinary school. From my experience, I did not know what major I was going to pick. I was going in a partial scholarship to play football, and I just knew they had an art department. I had seen the art department, so I knew there was going to be some courses, and then it was between, I thought I was going to lean towards maybe doing stuff like advertising, but they didn't have an advertising major, so I went with graphic design because they had graphic design and art education. I went with graphic design, and I didn't know what the courses were definitely before I chose the school, choosing it more for the football scholarship and things like that. And this is something that I'm asking for the people out there. How many of you knew the major you wanted to take when you actually applied to college? And then on top of that, once you were actually picking the major, how many of those colleges actually showed you which courses you would need to take to actually get that major and actually get some explanation of it? And I think you'll find very few actually did that. And that's a tough thing because they're signing you up for 4 years. Yeah. But they're not telling you what actual content is going to be there.
No.
Some people might be attracted to a certain school because a certain professor, a certain person is a teacher there, is teaching a course, and they enter and they say, oh, well, we don't know. This person has to take all these general studies for 2 years. By the time you get there, that person could die, could have moved on, could have changed his actual course content. So the thing you signed up for is not there anymore. So there's these kind of issues that there's not too many environments that are in this kind of place. If you say somebody needs general studies, needs 2 years of general studies before they can pick their major, why should they even be in college for those 2 years? Couldn't they be doing something else more productive or saving money and thinking about what they're doing? And then what does that say about the K through 12 again? How prepared are people after that K through 12 process? What is that doing that is bringing people out who make these major mistakes apparently in what they're going to do for their life?
And like I say, what always kills me too is I hear things like, the same people will say to me, oh, college is worthwhile. And then I'll be like, how much of it did you use? They're like, well, I learned on the job. That's what a lot of people do. But then it's like, okay, but how much of this stuff that you learned in school did you actually apply? Oh, very little, almost none. Well, then how was it valuable? Like it doesn't follow. It's like, it's like you have to make the case to me, like with culinary school, you can make the argument like And the thing is too, chefs will even criticize this because culinary school, you can learn the fundamentals like, okay, here's how to make these sauces, here's knife cuts, all that. But there's certain things you can only learn in the real world. Like, what do you do if the walk-in breaks down? What do you do if you're out of something? What if you run out of something in the middle of service and you have to like get it together on the fly? What do you do if someone calls out, you have to work a station? Like, there's certain things you can only learn in the real world, and like it's very hard to recreate that environment in an artificial setting.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely one thing that we'll be going through some major changes in this post-pandemic world, is that general studies kind of thing. That's something that can definitely be done remotely. That's, in general, most of those courses can be done remotely. They can be done by a mix of people. You don't really benefit so much for the actual value that's actually in those courses. You don't really benefit so much by it being taught by one specific person in a specific way. You can literally be taught the content by, like, you're talking about all these English majors and things like that. You can literally be taught by a different person every class.
Yeah.
Every course, every day you go to, and it's still getting the same information. Yes, there might be something where you're saying you have some closer relationships and some rapport with certain teachers and things like that you would not have. But if it's the content, if it's the information, that can be learned without the thing. And you can still figure out ways where you say, okay, this one teacher moves around with this group of people until they're full with it. And whether it's remote learning, whether it's on location, you meet up in certain places. There's ways to do this that are, I think, going to take more advantage of the current abilities that we have in technology. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you for listening. This has been a clip from an actual longer recording that I'll try to leave a link to on the screen or somewhere around here where you're listening to this.
Presents. 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 Presents.
Peasants.
Okay. Okay.